Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Monash. On today's show, we're talking about how the narrative in your mind is selecting the data from which to make decisions. To properly frame today's discussion, we need to look at two things: the data itself and the way you process the data. Let's start with the data. There's no question the data showing up in the market is contradictory in so many ways. We have a stock market in record territory at the same time as we have economic contraction and unemployment in record territory. We have record low inventory and rising prices in many real estate markets at the same time as we have millions of properties in financial distress. But none of those properties are appearing on the market as distressed properties. We have rising real estate debt and falling consumer debt. We have signs of economic recovery and looming signs on the horizon of a second wave of infection coming in the pandemic, although it's too soon to say whether that is indeed what's happening. We have some school boards reopening and others not. How many people will be homeschooling their children this year, and what will be the impact on the employment workforce of those millions of individual decisions? People, for the most part, are paying their rent, but what will happen when the emergency financial aid comes to an end? It's truly difficult to make sense out of all these conflicting data points that under normal conditions would be useful in determining the current state of the market. Okay, so the data is confusing to say the least. The question is, how are you processing the data and deriving conclusions based on it? To answer that question, we're going to look at how people listen. And whether you're listening or reading or watching, you're processing what's coming at you in one of 8 different ways. And what I'm going to share with you is something I developed a decade ago called the 8 forms of listening. And I'm going to mix a metaphor here. When I'm talking about listening, I'm also talking about reading or viewing. So here we go with the 8 forms of listening. Number 1, ignoring listening. You can talk all you want, but nothing gets in. I'm not interested in your problems, your requests, or your pleas. Don't talk to me. I'm a cold brick wall. That's ignoring listening. Number 2, partial listening. As I'm listening, I do another task. I'm distracted. I may mumble a reply absently or nod my head. I spend my day multitasking and trying to do 1,000 things while listening to those around me who need my attention. In partial listening, the listener is not present at all. Number 3, selective listening. Selective listening involves listening for particular things and ignoring the rest. We hear what we want to hear and we pay little attention or ignore the parts of the conversation we don't want to hear. Number 4, active listening. In active listening, you're engaged in the conversation. You're hearing what's being said, you ask relevant questions, and some people believe that active listening is the highest form of listening. It's actually not the highest form. In active listening, you play back what you've heard, but it doesn't mean that you're processing what you're taking in. Number 5, empathic or sympathetic listening. In empathic listening, you're trying to go beyond sympathy to the speaker. You're trying to truly understand how they're feeling, how they experience the world, and how the events unfold around them. Empathic listening helps people feel heard, and it can be a cornerstone to positive relationships. Number 6, know-it-all listening. As you try and tell me your story, I'm already filling in the blanks or offering solutions. I know what the problem is, and I've got the solution. Stop talking already so I can go fix the problem and get on with the rest of the day. I've stopped listening really, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to say back. Number 7, pretend listening. In pretend listening, there's no intention of actually doing anything you say. You don't take anything in. Are you finished yet? And number 8, focus listening. This is actually the highest form of listening. I'm listening to you, and I want to make sure that you're being understood. I might paraphrase the words back to you, but I don't have to. In focus listening, I want you to feel understood, but most importantly, I understand your words and your perspective. I'm truly processing what I'm hearing fully. So if any of these forms of listening sound familiar, or if you recognize them either in someone else or yourself, chances are good that you're processing things that you read or processing things that you watch in the same way, one of those 8 forms. And you're taking in the data that's being presented to you and making decisions based on the method you're using to process incoming data. As you think about that, have an awesome rest of your day. Go make some great things happen. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.